I used to believe that pain came in silence, in the quiet spaces between words, but I was wrong. Because pain has a voice, and sometimes it sounds like your husband's, as he stands in a room full of your family and says the words, "That baby isn't mine." I didn't see it coming. We were supposed to be celebrating. Our daughter, Emelina, had just turned 6 months old, and my parents, bless them, had thrown a small dinner. Just family, just us. There were candles, laughter, a chocolate cake I'd made from scratch. My mother took photos. My father bounced Emily on his knee. My sister teased me about how tired I looked, and I laughed because it was true. Sleep was rare, but I didn't mind. I was happy, or I thought I was. My husband, Michael, stood by the window most of the night. He wasn't cold or rude, just distracted. I thought it was work, or maybe he hadn't slept well. He barely held the baby that night. Didn't even comment when my father said, "She's got your eyes, Michael." Michael just nodded, took a sip of wine, and said nothing. And then, after dinner, as my mother cleared the plates and Emily giggled in my lap, it happened. Michael stood, glass still in hand, and cleared his throat. Everyone turned. It looked like he was about to give a toast. He'd done that before, at birthdays, anniversaries. So I smiled. I actually smiled, waiting for him to speak. But the moment he opened his mouth, I felt my stomach twist. He didn't toast. He didn't thank anyone. He said, "I need to say something before this goes any further." My father frowned. My sister stopped mid-sentence. Michael looked at me, directly, then at Emily, then back at the room. "I don't think that baby is mine," he said, just like that, like it was a fact. "I've had my doubts and I can't pretend anymore." The silence was deafening. My mother dropped a plate. My sister gasped. I froze. I felt the blood drain from my face. Emily, sensing the tension, started to fuss, but I couldn't move, couldn't blink. All I could hear was that sentence looping over and over in my head. "That baby isn't mine." My dad stood furious. "What are you talking about, Michael?" he snapped. But Michael wouldn't look at anyone, not even me. He just said, "I don't want to live a lie. I need to know the truth." Then he walked out. Just like that, grabbed his coat, and walked out of the house. I don't remember what happened next, just fragments. My sister holding Emily, my mother crying, my father yelling something as he rushed outside after Michael. Me? I sat there, frozen, my baby still warm in my arms, my cheeks wet, and my heart fractured. That night I didn't sleep. Emily cried, and I sat in the nursery, rocking her. Not because she needed me, but because I didn't know what else to do. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard his voice, cold, detached. Not the man I married, not the man I had loved for almost 8 years. The next day I called him. He didn't answer, not once. He came back to the house 2 days later, packed a bag, said he needed time. I asked him, "What made you say that? What did I do?" He just said, "I can't explain it. I just feel it." And then, as if he couldn't bear to be in the same room, he left again. It wasn't about DNA, it wasn't about Emily, it was about something breaking, something quiet and deep. Michael had been drifting for a long time. I just hadn't seen it. Or maybe I had, but I was too busy being a new mother to notice that my husband had already started to vanish. The house felt hollow, even with the baby crying, even with the laundry piling up and bottles to wash. Everything sounded distant, like I was underwater. I moved on autopilot and feed, change, rock, sleep. But I wasn't living. I was surviving. It had only been 3 days since Michael said those words, but it felt like I'd aged 10 years. I kept waiting to wake up, for him to text, to say it was a mistake, a misunderstanding, but there was nothing. Only silence. And silence, I've learned, is its own kind of betrayal. Ava came to visit. She brought coffee and groceries and didn't push me to talk. But eventually she asked, "Do you think he really believes it?" I shook my head. Number. I think he wanted to believe it, that's worse. Because if he had come to me in confusion, with worry or doubt or even anger, we could have worked through it. But instead, he stood in a room full of people who loved me and humiliated me. Publicly, brutally. That wasn't suspicion, that was punishment. I remembered how he'd withdrawn during my pregnancy. He said he was stressed, that he had work deadlines. But maybe he was already pulling away, already preparing his escape. And I'd been too full of hope, too full of love for the child we made, to see it. I'd forgotten this until days later, when Emily was born. Michael didn't cry. He smiled, yes, he held her, took photos, but he didn't cry. Not like I did. His smile was thin, like he was posing. I remember thinking, maybe it'll hit him later, maybe he's just overwhelmed. Now I wonder, did he look at her and already decide she wasn't his? Did he start writing the ending that day? I hate that my memory is infected now, that every sweet moment I held close feels like a lie. That's what betrayal does. It rots the foundation, even the beautiful parts. Especially the beautiful parts. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to get legal to make it real. But Michael wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't see me, and then he served me papers. He wanted a paternity test, official, legal. My lawyer looked at me kindly, and I felt like I was shrinking under the weight of it all. I said, "What if he really believes it?" She said, "Does it matter? He already chose not to trust you." And just like that, I understood. This wasn't about DNA. It never was. It was about control and escape. So I agreed. I let them take swabs. From me, from Emily, from Michael. And then I waited. 10 days. 10 days of silence. Of rocking a baby whose father didn't want her. And I made a choice. Even before the results came in, I decided I wouldn't stay with a man who needed science to believe in our child. It was positive, 99.9%. Michael was her father. I stared at the paper. No tears, just a deep, hollow ache. Because I already knew. I never doubted. And the fact that he had, that's what broke us. We met at a quiet cafe. He looked tired, worn down, older. I handed him the envelope. He opened it, didn't say anything for a long time. Then he said, "I'm sorry." Just 2 words, whispered. But they didn't fix anything. I told him the truth, that I would never forgive the way he did it. Not because he had doubts, but because he voiced them in front of the people who loved me most. In front of our child. He looked up, surprised. "She's a baby, she won't remember." And I said, "But I will." I walked away that day with no plan. Just resolve. No promises, no reconciliation. Because this wasn't a chapter to be rewritten. It was the end of the book. Sometimes the wound isn't what they did, it's how they did it. And Michael's wound wasn't doubt, it was disrespect. And I would never let my daughter grow up watching her mother be disrespected. The hardest part wasn't the divorce. It wasn't the paperwork. It wasn't even the loneliness. It was the aftermath, the echoes, the way people looked at me differently. The way my mother cried behind closed doors, and the silence that filled my house after Emily went to sleep. I'd sit there for hours sometimes just watching her breathe, her tiny chest rising and falling. She looked so much like Michael, the curve of her nose, her deep brown eyes, even her smile when she started to giggle in her sleep. And it broke me, not because of him, but because he chose not to see it. He chose not to see her. People always ask, why didn't you fight harder? Or didn't you want to fix things? But here's the truth. You can't fix something with someone who keeps breaking it. And Michael didn't just break my heart. He shattered my dignity. He made me feel like a liar in front of my own blood. He let our daughter's birth be questioned like it was some courtroom drama. I could forgive a lot, but not that. My mom was quiet for a while after everything happened. Then one day she said I shook my head. No one could have stopped him. That wasn't a slip, that was planned. And that's what haunts me. Not the doubt, but the performance. He chose an audience. He chose humiliation. Maybe he wanted out and didn't know how. Maybe he wanted people to see him as a victim, a man raising someone else's child, a martyr. It was easier than being honest, than admitting he fell out of love, or fell into someone else. I never got the real reason, and I stopped asking. I went back to work, part-time at a little bookstore downtown. It smelled like old pages and strong coffee. And for the first time in months, I felt human again. I was no longer just the woman whose husband said the baby wasn't his. I was Eliza, reader, mother, survivor. The women at the store became my lifeline. Most were older. One was recently widowed. Another was divorced twice. They didn't offer pity, just presence, warmth, honesty, and it helped more than therapy ever did. He came in one rainy afternoon, looking for a book on parenting. I helped him find one. We made small talk. He thanked me, looked down at his daughter and said, I don't know what I'm doing most day, but she looks at me like I'm magic. And just like that, I cried. Not loud, not messy, just quiet tears behind the counter because I realized that's all I ever wanted for Emily, a father who saw her. Even when he didn't understand her, even when it was hard, just see her. Michael didn't come to the first birthday. He didn't send a card, didn't call. He sent a lawyer's email 2 days later about visitation scheduling. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I shut my laptop, because that's what he reduced fatherhood to, a scheduled obligation. I wanted more for her, for us. I started writing again, something I hadn't done since college. Pages filled with late-night thoughts, fears, regrets, dreams. And one day, I wrote a letter I never sent. To Michael. You will never know what it felt like to carry her, to grow her, to hold her for the first time and feel your whole life tilt with love. You will never know what you missed when you walked away, but I do, and I won't let you take that from me. I kept the letter. I read it on hard days, but I never gave it to him. Because he didn't deserve my words anymore. He gave up his place in our story. So I kept writing without him. Some betrayals scream, others echo, and Michael's betrayal still echoes. In Emily's questions, in her smile, in the empty seat at her birthdays. But the echo is fading now, because I filled the silence with something stronger, my voice, my peace, my daughter. Time is strange. It doesn't heal everything, but it softens things. Rounds the edges of pain, turns the sharpest memories into quiet echoes. A year passed, then 2, and Emily grew. She was walking, then running, then climbing things she absolutely shouldn't have. She laughed more than she cried. She asked for bedtime stories with animals in them. She sang off-key and danced like the world was her stage. And every time I looked at her, I saw joy, resilience, wholeness. Not because life was perfect, but because she was loved. Michael called again when she was almost 3. His voice was different, tired, empty. He said he wanted to try again, not with me, but with her. I said no, not because I wanted revenge, but because parenting isn't a light switch. You don't get to turn it off and on. Ava said I was brave, that most people would have given him another chance. But bravery didn't feel like armor. It felt like stillness, like sitting with my pain, like trusting my instincts when everything told me to give in. I didn't keep Emily from Michael to punish him. I kept her safe, safe from a man who once stood in a room full of family and denied her. No court order, no apology could erase that. When Emily asks about her dad, I tell her what's true, that he lives in another city, that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes they can't undo, and that none of it was her fault. I show her baby pictures of me holding her, feeding her, laughing when she laughed. She doesn't ask why he left, not yet. But one day she will, and I'll be ready. I joined a support group, not because I was falling apart, but because I didn't want to fall alone. We shared stories about love, about betrayal, about raising children through the ache. One woman said something I'll never forget. Sometimes the hardest goodbye gives us the clearest hello to ourselves. And it stuck, because it was true. Michael's goodbye, as cruel as it was, gave me back me. For years I was someone's wife, then someone's ex, then the woman whose husband denied her child. But now, I was someone's everything. I was Emily's mother, the person she reached for when she was scared, the one who held her through tantrums, who sang to her on long drives, who knew which sock was itchy and which blanket was too loud. I knew her, and she knew me. That was enough. He wrote me once, not long ago, a letter, handwritten. He said he regretted what he did, that he thought I had cheated, that someone had planted the idea. He didn't say who. He said he was ashamed, that he missed her, that he wanted to be part of her life, even if just a small part. I read it twice. Then I cried. Not because I missed him, but because I realized he finally saw her. Too late. But he saw her. I didn't respond, not then, not yet, because sometimes love, even when it's for your child, needs more than regret. It needs consistency, proof, time. You don't get to rewrite history with one sorry. You don't get to walk back into a child's life like it's a room you forgot to visit. You show up, you stay, you earn it. And until then, she's okay. We're okay. Because the life we built without him is real and strong and full of love. It's been 4 years. Emily just turned 5. She had a tea party theme this year. Pink cupcakes, glitter crowns, plastic teacups filled with apple juice. And laughter. So much laughter. We filled our small yard with people who loved her. No drama, no tension. Just joy. She made me blow out the candles with her. And I didn't wish for anything, because for the first time in years, I didn't need to. We had everything we needed. Michael didn't come. He sent a gift, a dollhouse. Emily opened it, smiled politely, and moved on. She didn't ask who it was from, and I didn't offer, because she no longer waits for him. That part of her, the wondering, the hoping, it's already fading. Ava sat next to me on the porch. We watched the kids chasing bubbles and stepping on frosting. She said, You did it, you know. You raised her in love. And I said, we did, all of us. Because it wasn't just me. It was Ava, my mom, my co-workers, the women at the bookstore, the women in the support group. It was a village, a tired, coffee-fueled, resilient village. And together we raised joy. I used to think betrayal would define me, that I'd carry it forever, that every new connection, every glance, every smile would be tainted by it. But now, it doesn't define me. It shaped me, sure, but it didn't own me. Her teacher showed me a drawing Emily made. It was a house with two stick figures, one tall, one small, both smiling. Above it, in crooked little letters, she'd written, "Me and Mom." That was her family, simple, safe, enough. I used to wonder what Emily would lose by not having Michael around, but I've stopped wondering, because what she gained was peace, stability, a home without tension, a mother who chose her every single day. And someday when she's old enough, I'll tell her everything, not to make her hate him, but to make her understand that love, real love, isn't a feeling, it's a choice. I started writing children's books, just little stories about brave girls and soft places, books about being loved, books about being enough. The store let me host readings once a month. Emily sat in the front row every time, like I was famous, like I was magic. And every time I looked at her, I knew the truth. I didn't just survive what Michael did. I built something better from it. Something stronger, softer, kinder, for her, for me. She keeps a picture of us by her bed. She says it helps her sleep because it's us being happy. And she's right, we are happy. It's not perfect, but it's peaceful, and peace is everything. Michael still tries now and then. A message here, a card there. Sometimes I respond, most times I don't. Not because I'm bitter, but because the version of me he knew, the one he disrespected, she doesn't live here anymore. This version of me, she's not begging to be believed. She's not proving her worth. She's raising a daughter who will never question hers. So no, he didn't just hurt me. He freed me from pretending, from shrinking, from waiting. He said our baby wasn't his in front of the whole family, but what he didn't know is that she wasn't just his. She was mine, fully, beautifully, irrevocably mine, and I chose her. I choose her every day.